This world is founded on exploration. A desire to experience something almost extinct. Extreme expeditions, exposing the unknown. This is X-Quest. Meet Frank Wolf.
A traditional Argentinian way to kind of relax the muscles and unwind is called El Hombre Futi, which loosely translated means the running man.
A Canadian adventurer with a relentless sense of humor. Frank is up for any challenge. Today, he's in a remote area of Argentina where no human being has been before.
And the opportunity arose to join up with Pablo on this expedition into an unexplored valley. It was irresistible, to say the least.
My burden. A camera box and a pack.
Frank is in the unexplored Motoco Valley with a rugged team of survivalist mountaineers who call themselves El Grupo Explorador Argentino.
The Motoco is a totally uncharted region, completely closed and isolated from any human intervention. It's not easy, you know.
Their goal is to find the never-before-seen source of the Motoco River, a waterway that flows from the Argentinian Andes down into the Rio Azul and all the way to the South Atlantic Ocean.
Actually, in these mountains, many people died.
The Motoco River in South America. El Grupo Explorador Argentino are trying to become the first team of explorers to track the Motoco all the way to its source. The group is a regimented exploration team, devoutly committed to their eccentric leader, Pablo Edroncan.
For the last 25 years of his life, he's been exploring the mountains of Patagonia. Kind of formed a troupe of individuals who are like-minded, and they go off into unexplored areas and try to get as far as they can and see things that people have never seen before.
I actually learned to walk at 5,000 meters in northern Argentina, so I have explored for my whole life. It's a sort of family business. I am third or fourth generation doing this. So I think I have done this my whole life without interruption. You don't need to actually go into violence if you have more firepower than the other.
To fund his expeditions, Pablo runs an outdoor adventure website that gets 40,000 hits a day. Fidel Castro is a personal fan. So is the US Navy. They commissioned Pablo to write a manual on homemade bombs.
Pablo is a very interesting individual. He's kind of very by the book. He kind of is a straight shooter. Has a PhD in systems analysis, so he's very analytical about everything as well, but also extremely knowledgeable about the mountains, the Patagonia Mountains in particular.
Packed and ready, the team hits the road, headed for the mountain city of El Bolson, where they'll begin their scheduled 17-day expedition into unknown territory.
Okay, so we're here, and it's 4:30 in the morning, and Pablo and the guys are pretty serious about getting going now, really early. It's like Full Metal Jacket or something. I got hushed already and stuff like that. But yeah, we're heading up now to the trailhead. Get an early start before the weather comes in. This is day one. Let's see what happens. By the way, Pablo snores like crazy. It's like he was sawing his leg off with a chainsaw last night. Awful. I'm looking forward to 17 more days of this.
Pablo Idronkin is 36 years old. He lives with his mother and doesn't have a girlfriend. Pablo's greatest passion is penetrating and mapping the undiscovered areas of Patagonia. It's the love of his life. To become a member of his hand-picked exploration group, you must show the same dedication.
These kind of things usually don't go with families. That's the problem.
They believe that they will never have the freedom to do this sort of thing whenever they want to if they get hooked up. They're bachelors for life, married to Patagonia and the wilderness that is here.
So far we've come up through the valley. It's kind of a hard hump for about 6 or 7 hours to this old gaucho ranch where we're going to camp out tonight.
When normal campers want to light a fire after it's been raining, they often use extra cardboard to help it catch. Pablo prefers using a notorious jelly.
What are you using there, Pablo, for the fire?
This is napalm. Nice thing to burn.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
If you make it burn, it's okay. Nothing happens. If you make it explode, well then.
What happens if you use too much?
Well, you will get the napalm taste in your tea. It burns quite rapidly. The smoke is staying low. Those are signs that of bad weather coming.
This trip won't be easy for Frank. Not only will the physical strain test him, but he has cultural hurdles to overcome as well. On this journey, he is an outsider.
I think they're quite skeptical at first that someone else who hadn't been through their rigorous pre-training rituals could go out into the mountains with them and hang out with them and keep up with them for the whole thing. Yeah, it was quite interesting to get to know the guys and kind of gain their trust.
This wide-open countryside is owned by Argentina, but it is totally unchecked and unregulated. The government calls this ignored wilderness fiscal land. If anyone builds a structure on fiscal land, it's theirs after 7 years. 6 years ago, Pablo and his disciples pieced together a stone shelter on a pristine lake called Lago Las Brisas. It's a 2-day hike from here, if you don't step out of line.
Well, here the trail ends. No more people come here, and we will have to find our way into these last trees and into rock and snow. That's where the real trip begins.
For us, it was a group of 6, and Pablo, being the most experienced, he would always be in the front of a single file of 6 people. Gustavo, his right-hand man, was in the very back, the tail man. He was the second most experienced. And then in between, right behind Pablo, would be David, and then in the middle would be me as the least experienced, and behind me would be Sergio. So it's kind of like pecking order, and that was how it stayed all the way. No one ever swayed from that order, so they're very disciplined that way. So that's kind of the rank and file, very military style, to say the least. So Pablo as captain, Gustavo as colonel, and then the privates in the middle. Gustavo actually was my shadow. Whenever I'd break the file, for example, and take a picture, they would kind of all be aghast, you know, what's going on? He's breaking the file.
Tomorrow, the team plans to head straight over an avalanche-prone glacier, covered in fresh snow. It's risky, but Pablo says it's their only way into the really dangerous part. For the past 6 years, El Grupo Explorador Argentino has been pressing deeper and deeper into the uncharted Motoco Valley. They have built stone shelters deep in the virgin wilderness and stashed canned food and tools at strategic points along the way. This is not a simple one-time camping trip. This is a full-scale, lifelong physical attack on an entire geographic area. For these men, this particular adventure has been over 6 years in the making, but it is only one small part of their much larger idea. They want to discover and document as much of Patagonia as is humanly possible. It's a tall order. In this southern latitude, winter conditions are extremely fierce for 10 months of the year. January is the only month stable enough to even think about making this voyage. Even now, at the height of summer, the elements can turn deadly. Pablo knows this only too well. Last year, when he attempted this exact same trip, the weather turned so brutal that his team was forced to huddle under a plastic tarp for 21 days, as snow and high winds pounded them relentlessly.
Once you have that much snow on the slopes, you're basically trapped. So you're going to starve to death in the Motoco, or you try to get out and then you'll just be avalanched to death. So it's kind of like you have to choose your poison.
This is a simple stone wall made to protect us from the winds. If we come here much too late in the afternoon and we see that we can't cross the glacier because of a coming storm or whatever problem we might have, then we use these stone walls as a survival shelter and pass the night.
Pablo and the team have built a whole series of these stone shelters into the Motoco Valley. It might look practically useless, but the foundation is a lifesaver when weather hits. Even on this clear day, the rocks provide a strange sense of security and home.
Going into a place like the Motoco, you have to realize that you're on your own and no one will rescue you if you get in trouble. Pablo didn't carry any kind of communication equipment anyway, so we're committed right there. The weather and the wind is just too unpredictable and risky for anyone to try to risk their lives trying to help someone else who's in trouble out. So basically, once you're in, and it's up to you to get yourself out.
Goggles designed to prevent snow blindness retail for about $100. But according to Pablo, they're not as good as the ones he's made.
This is some metal taken out from stereo systems, and the frames of normal goggles. These are much better than glass or plastic goggles because they don't get foggy. They are very lightweight and more resistant.
And how's the visibility?
Fine. The darkness give you a little bit, but that's what we want.
Let's see them with you. See how they look on you? Let's see how they look on you.
It would be something like this.
Okay. Bueno.
The glacier on the way in is kind of a tricky thing. It's the only way to get up over the hump, which eventually drops into Lago Las Brisas. All right, looks like we're going up that glacier face, straight up, Argentinian style. No ropes, no nothing. So, this one looks steep enough to avalanche. See what happens. It's quite a steep, it's like a perfect 35-degree slope, 40-degree slope, which is an ideal avalanche slope. So, kicking up the middle of it like we did, there's always the possibility that you're going to release it and the whole thing is just going to go. Storm comes in, you just can't move and you can't go anywhere. It's too dangerous to move in the steep kind of rocky terrain with, a fresh half foot of snow with a 100-pound pack in your back. So it was definitely always something in the back of our mind. So every cloud that appeared in the sky would always kind of cause us to look up at the sky a few more times, praying for it to clear. It's a big, beautiful, barren moonscape up here. Nothing but rocks and me and 5 Argentinians.
From the peak of the glacier, the team has a gorgeous view of their base camp, situated on the banks of the windy-sounding Lago Las Brisas.
The reason we had to go over the glacier is because the other way in is 1,000-meter walls, essentially. So you have to go around it and up over this hump and then drop into the hanging valley in order to access the main valley. The base camp at Las Brisas is an ideal location to explore the Motoco Valley. the only place you can really access the Motoco from.
This means chapel from Las Brisas, or Las Brisas Chapel. We actually put this chapel instead of a shelter or cabin in order to make people respect it more if they come. This particular shelter is about 3-4 years old, and we expect to continue modifying and improving it as we come here to this area.
All right, after a hard day humping, it's best thing to do is to go for a swim in an ice cold lake. This is the first ever swim in this lake, the Lake of the Breezes, because these Argentinians don't like cold water, apparently. Yeah.
El Grupo Explorador Argentino is a team of adventurers attempting to find the source of the uncharted Motoco River, high in the Andes Mountains of Argentina. At their base camp, team leader Pablo Idronken is in his element, overseeing lunch for the team, which includes Canadian videographer Frank Wolf. Frank is trying to prove his worth, but the Argentinian food is leaving him weak and wanting. The portions are just too small. Lunch today is a cute little snack that looks more like a dessert than a main course.
Pablo, what kind of spread are you using on your bread this morning?
This is made out of sweet potatoes and chocolate. It's a national dish also.
What's the name?
Dulce de batata.
Pablo is impressed by Frank's endurance. He leads him ahead to show off the next hurdle, lenga trees.
So now we will do a little test. We'll go through the lengas as they grow in the higher parts of the valley. This is what we'll have to go through. Not very nice, actually. Imagine what this do. Take a backpack with you. Still follow me.
Pablo? Pablo? It's a hot, calm day here in Lago Las Brisas. One of the main hazards on a hot day like this in the high mountain country of Patagonia is horseflies. And they got long, single teeth that bite deep into you, and they're on you all the time. And they're nasty buggers, but they're fun to kill. Here's one of them right now.
This is a net we made, a head net, to protect our faces from the horseflies. About here, Sergio lost it a couple of years ago. You just put it over your head like this.
What you doing in there, Pablo?
Hmm?
What you doing in there?
That's my office.
Oh.
You see?
And what does that stuff do, that black material?
It's sunshade.
As well as horsefly protection, probably.
Yeah, it offers quite 90% protection or something like that. It's quite comfortable.
It's not too hot under there?
No, absolutely not. I'm organizing the trip.
As soon as they got here, Pablo sent Gustavo and David to retrieve tools and canned food from the team's secret stash. Now they're back with the goods.
Just in case some landslide or something like that destroys the shelter, we have more chances to get our things if they are kept somewhere else. We always do that.
Pablo's gang of explorers, they're very basic. They make whatever they can out of flour and water and add a bit of meat, so it's very basic. They cook it right in the coals of the fire. There's not even a grill. They don't use stoves. They don't use tents. They just kind of either build an Inca-style traditional hut or just put a plastic tarp right over their faces and lie on the ground.
What you wearing there?
My poncho. My
house. They're about as basic and kind of rudimentary a style as I've seen, especially in this day and age.
It's like a toast, but
Right.
fried. A fried toast. Bueno.
Muy bueno. Very good.
So we're heading out to check out this waterfall the guy spotted from a ways out last year, and just going to measure the size of it and check out the area on kind of the northwest part of the valley. So it should be interesting. Breaking new ground.
This is a small mark to pinpoint our way through this, well, not trail because there's no trail here, but our way.
Pablo wants El Grupo Explorador Argentino to be the first humans ever to visit a remote waterfall they spotted last year. If they make it, Pablo will have the honor of naming the falls.
All right, we're working our way through this Lenga forest now. Half the time you're off the ground, bush bashing, and just going down this creek bed now towards the waterfall. The Lenga tree is the only tree species essentially in the subalpine of Patagonia. And the Lenga is the reason that the Motoco Valley and others like it have never been explored or populated by indigenous people. They grow very densely together, as you can see. They kind of twist all together and spread out over the ground, so it makes moving through it extremely difficult. You move at a snail's pace. And because of the way the branches are, of course, they're sharp branches and they tear at your clothes, they tear at your skin. So obviously it's a hazard to go through them. But on the bright side, these have basically protected these valleys from any human inhabitation or encroachment. That's why we have unexplored places like this today.
The team can literally smell it now. They are about to become the first human beings ever to enjoy this virgin waterfall. As he names the natural wonder, it's easy to understand why Pablo is addicted to Patagonia.
We are in the middle of a Bengal bamboo forest. Maybe we should call it the... Oh, there's a frog there, so it will be the frog fall. They have got this deep canyon inside the valley, which is very representative of what the Motoco Valley is all about.
Energized by the victory of discovering Frog Falls, the group pushes on, climbing upriver and out of the canyon. When they reach the highest point of land above the falls, they can see where all the water is coming from, the source of the Motoco River. There it is, tantalizingly close. If the weather holds, the team can probably make it there in 2 days. But if the weather turns ugly, as it did on last year's attempt, they won't have a hope. It's a good thing they don't have a shortwave radio. The forecast would frighten them. High in the Andes Mountains of southern Argentina, storms approach a hardcore group of explorers who are attempting to be the first team to ever make it to the source of the Motoco River. Over a small meal of freshly made pasta, they remember last year's fiasco.
Right away the clouds started building that night and everyone's kind of like looking, and I think everyone's kind of feeling it's going to be like the year before, where if a storm blew in, you basically are just sitting under a tarp going stir crazy for 3 weeks instead of actually going down and exploring and meeting your objectives. So everyone's kind of like nervously looking up at it, and the clouds were building and the wind was coming in.
Storm's blowing in and we're battening down the hatches.
Now we know that the weather is going to be worse because the clouds are touching the peaks of the mountain, and when that happens, the clouds will pour water in the form of rain, hail, or snow, and we are now preparing our cabin, and we will stay dry and comfortable through this night. It's not going to be nice.
When Pablo says it's not going to be nice, you'd better believe it.
De tu lado, el plástico semiplano de la puerta. The problem with the possible fall of snow is that the glacier we had to pass through may become much more dangerous.
The nearest hospital is more than 2 days away. Frank can't sleep. It's partly the stress, but mostly the snoring.
So Pablo, how'd you sleep last night? How did you sleep last night?
Well, for me it was well.
Yes. Something. Well,
Last night it rained pretty heavily, a little bit of snow in our shelter this morning. We're basically going to wait till about midday in order to determine whether or not we can go down into the Motoco Valley. Letting the lengas dry out a bit too, because when they get wet, packs get soaked and they're just murder in terms of slipping and that sort of thing. What we're looking for here in the valley is basically this mountain behind me here, and translated from Spanish it means rock of weather. And basically whenever a large cloud goes over the mountain and actually touches it and runs through it, that's when Pablo and the boys start to get worried, because that usually indicates a bad system coming in. So when the clouds thicken up and cover the mountain, that's when there's trouble. So we're gonna wait till about noon, because that's usually when things crap out. And if things look okay then, we'll head on down into the Motoco Valley.
Now is when leadership comes into play. At 1 o'clock, under threatening skies, Pablo makes his decision. The group will press on towards the source of the Motoco River.
So Pablo, what's the decision for today?
We'll go down to the valley. I hope the weather will stay like this now. It won't get much better actually, but I hope it won't get much worse.
A couple of things we'll be doing today. One is we're going to be cutting the first ever trail down into the valley. Pablo with his machete is going to be marking blazes on the trees as we go down. And Pablo is saying 2 days of snow in a row means we have to get out of here pretty quickly. It would be major avalanche hazard on the pass on the way out.
We are looking for open spaces where we can walk easier, and for cliffs. We don't want to get into some of those. So we must go round and round here, trying to look our way down. It's not easy, you know.
Why would people spend their life savings on this? Why would they want to suffer cuts and bruises and sticks jabbing them in the eye? Why enter a region that is so inhospitable no one has ever been there before? Because when you pop out through the branches, you get to see the earth exactly as it was created.
Looks like we've been trapped by a confluence of 3 streams through a canyon. We're kind of in the middle of 2 of the streams, so we're trying to find our way out of here so we can keep on descending, but right now it doesn't look good.
Apparently, this part of the earth was created to stop all human traffic. The team is looking, searching, hoping to find a way down into the valley. To explore unmapped areas, you have to enjoy getting lost. But if you ever did get really lost, would you even know it? El Grupo Explorador Argentino are lost. They know it, and they love it. Deep in the southern heart of the Andes mountain range, a group of Argentinian explorers believe they are the first humans to ever walk through this pristine part of the Motoco Valley. Their goal is to find the never-before-seen source of the valley's river. On their way, they stumble upon a disturbing sight. People have been here before.
We found a trail, which wasn't supposed to be here. Trails here are made for 3 purposes. A, cattle. B, hiking. and see, well, smuggling.
He's run into troubles before on trips. There's areas you go into in the Patagonia where you can run into bandits who will try to rob you. They'll rob like backpackers and things like that. And then in more remote areas that you might just run into people that are, you know, unsavory, crazy, whatever. An interesting thing about Pablo is that he has invented his own gun, and it's actually electronically propulsed instead of being propulsed by like a hammer on gunpowder. So he could break it into basically many different pieces, put it together quickly, and he'd have a gun. And then it can fire 1,000 rounds a minute, or he can also stick in a rocket-propelled grenade, and it'll work with that as well.
The pass is this, what we see there.
If you're wondering where Pablo got the detailed map of this so-called uncharted area, it was hand-drawn 30 years ago by a local geologist from El Bolson.
This is probably a trail that begins in Chile. The trail used for smuggling goes over here. It's not a legal pass, but it goes over here. And probably they tried to enter this valley over here, but they found after they got here that they couldn't continue because the valley here closes. It's impossible to pass through.
Great, Smuggler's Trail. Here we are all dressed as the Argentinian army, and we're gonna come across some smugglers, and what are they gonna do but, you know, open fire?
Hopefully, the smell of burning napalm will keep the bad guys away. If Pablo and the team survive the night, they should make it to the source of the Motoco River tomorrow afternoon. First, they must set up camp.
It's a sliding knot. Very good for what we intend to use.
And what's the history of that knot you were saying before?
This knot was invented by an English hangman whose name was Jack Ketch. He was the official killer of the kingdom. I never killed anyone with this knot. This is a very simple shelter that we will use as our home for the next few days if the weather doesn't improve a little bit.
It's simple, but it's also a solid lesson in engineering. This structure is built for survival and practicality, not fashion. The men won't die in there, so it's perfect.
Tomorrow, we'll head up towards the unexplored southern Motoco river source.
Sí. Y esta senda tendría que seguir para aquel lado.
In the morning, a new obstacle pops up. Bamboo, the fastest growing plant on the planet, has cut the team off completely. Even with machetes, they can't get through it.
Okay, we shall go that way.
What's going on, Pablo?
Well, the place is getting intransitable. It's impossible to pass through. So we have to look for a way to pass these bamboos. Now the vegetation is just like a wall.
The bamboo is so thick, the explorers leave their backpacks and search for a way to the river. Whatever happens, they will have to come back to this spot tonight.
We're trying to find a way through.
So I think we might continue over this side of the river and go as far as possible.
Is this unexplored country as far as you know?
Yes, yes. Even if we take into account that trail, here there is nothing. We are now out of any humanly populated place.
Pablo has rediscovered the Motoco. Back on course, he finally feels like he's going to make it to the river's origin. The team will return to their packs after a short rest, and maybe a quick dip.
Well, here we have some kind of swimming pool, a very nice swimming pool. Here the valley opens. We are very near the last source, perhaps 1 or 2 kilometers away. We shall see. It's really completely unexpected.
first ever swim the south arm of the Motoco. I got it. We ditched our packs today earlier just because the bamboo is just brutal to get through. It's like a wall. Just kind of traversed along the edge of the valley until we hit the river here. Beautiful corner, crystal clear water, and nobody's ever been here or seen it before. We'll probably head back and camp the same place we were last night, and then tomorrow make a push for the source.
Frank is wishing he brought shin guards. The bamboo is about to begin again.
I think it's worse than the lenga. It's like someone's beating your shins with a cane all day. Someone in front of you will be walking, and then bang, it'll hit you in the face. Blunt ends, broken ends will stab you and stuff like that. I'd give these guys the misery victory over the lenga. These bamboos are bad news.
Pablo typically, I think, and on purpose, rations it extremely lean. You can only carry so much in for a 17-day trip.
Frank is hungry. He's already lost 10 pounds on this trip. He's starting to obsess about food and how Pablo seems to enjoy dishing out the minuscule portions.
When you spend days or weeks living in the middle of dirt and extreme conditions, it's very good, not just for your health, but for your spirit, to have some degree of luxury, actually. We call this primitive comfort.
They make these extravagant, stuffed pastas and this sort of thing, but after 12 hours of trekking and not eating much at all during the day, you come at the end and you get like 4 little raviolis in your cup, and that's all you're getting. And you're always just thinking about food because you're perpetually hungry. You wake up and there was just little bits of meal. Everyone was kind of just grunting and silently eating their food, and Pablo was loving it all the way.
That evening, 2 team members set out for water. It should be a 5-minute trip, but 20 minutes later, they're still not back. Pablo is worried. Local pumas stalk their prey in the day and make their kills at night. A group of Argentinian explorers are mapping an uncharted area of Patagonia while searching for the source of the Motoco River. Everything was going perfectly, but now, tragedy looms.
About 45 minutes ago, Sergio and Federico went down to get some water about 40 or 50 meters from our campsite, and they disappeared. So now Pablo and Gustavo are out looking for them.
It's dark, pitch dark now. It's very easy to fall into some small hole here, to fall into the bamboos, which can be dangerous. Also the canyons that are everywhere here, they pose a real danger. Actually, in these mountains, many people died trying to find their way back into the night.
In the darkness, Pablo finds the lost duo and shepherds them back to the camp, lecturing all the way.
The boys have been found, and it seems the discussion will go long into the night.
Just getting up after another night of sleeping under the stars. Time to see what's for breakfast.
So today we will try to travel fast and light into the direction of the Motoco River and try to go as far as possible, maybe even to the origins of the river where it is born. I don't know if we will manage to do that today, but at least we will have opened part of the way.
Back in the Lankas.
this mountain here behind me, which is the Rocco del Tiempo. That is the source of the South Motoco, where we're headed right now. Probably only a couple of kilometers away, and there should be a snowfield here where the river flows out of.
Finally, after 6 years of blood and sweat, El Grupo Explorador Argentino is within striking distance of their goal. Between them and the source of the Motoco River is only a simple hike. A walk that, until now, has eluded every explorer on Earth.
This is the tube, the third source of the Motoco River. So now we can say that the whole Motoco Valley and all its water sources have been explored. This is water from the third source of the Motoco. It really tastes good. I think this is quite healthy water because of the minerals and, well, the fact that it's oxygenated. And, well, I love it.
And our excursion up here was the first recorded exploration of the area. It was cut out originally by a glacier, and the river basically drains from the snowfields and the surrounding bowl here. Water is gorgeous, crystal clear. Pablo and the boys just taking a nap down river for me here, and we're just kind of soaking it all in. Here we are at the source of the Motoco River. It's fresh, clear, very cold mountain water. Snow's just right up there, but first time here, got to do the dip. Woo!
It's shockingly cold. But even more shocking is this, an Argentinian swimmer. With their victory nap already in the bag, the team relaxes in this purely natural place. To reflect on the journey, the stimulant mate is brewed.
Mate is Argentina's national drink. They drink 4 times as much mate as they do coffee. One person will serve each person in the circle, and people just kind of will sip it and have a conversation, and it's kind of their national pastime.
The expedition is unfolding perfectly, just like Pablo hoped it would. Today, he wants to cap it all off by getting the first ever altitude reading from the summit of Rocca del Tiempo, Rock of Weather.
People in the area believe that there's a UFO base in the top of Rocca del Tiempo. Last night we saw some actual unidentified flying object, and they were kind of flashing and very strange. 3 different objects kind of moving very slowly around in the sky, so very suspicious.
Now we are on the peak of Mount Rocca del Tiempo. We have the Lake Las Brisas to the south, Chile to the west. This is still Argentina. The next mountain is the international border. And I would say that we are just in the middle of nowhere. It says 2,040 meters above the sea level. This is perhaps the most accurate measuring or measurement of this mountain. In fact, I think it's the only one.
So far we can't see anything up here. It could be that at nighttime, like last night when we saw the flashing UFO lights, that perhaps it's all underground, and at night it just kind of opens up here and the little alien gremlins come out. Are you an alien, Pablo?
As far as I know, I'm not. But maybe I am, and I don't know. You never know.
So we've come as far as we can go, and that's about all we can do, so it's time to head back down.
When Frank met this group, he was an outsider. Now, he is an honorary team member, given the nickname Tabanos Video, or Video Horsefly. A 4-day hike back to civilization is all that remains. The expedition was a massive success. El Grupo Explorador Argentino discovered Frog Falls. They sourced the Motoco River, and they got the first ever altitude reading from the summit of Roca del Tiempo. As a bonus, Frank Wolf introduced them to the joys of skinny dipping. The Motoco Valley in Patagonia, Argentina. It's not just for horseflies anymore.